is it just you and...
JD and Tom are going, and there's a bunch of local guys up there. Do you remember meeting Brad Campo and Brad Bergevin and Grant Campo and all those guys at Radio Hill?
Not really.
This is the Final Round Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this episode of the Final Round Podcast. We are here for episode number 24, and it's a bit of a unique one right now with some of the changes that have happened here in the last few days regarding IHRA essentially dropping the class racing as a whole. It's caused a major rift throughout the drag racing community. It's forcing drivers and teams to make difficult choices. It's forcing tracks to make difficult choices. There's not a lot of money that's laying around in the drag racing world as it is to just arbitrarily jump ship and change over to run a different class or to go try and find your way through. So it has set a significant number of shockwaves through the industry as a whole. And Jason Oldfield joining me here in studio. It doesn't seem at this point like this was something that was telegraphed, right? I mean, was the writing on the wall for this if you're looking close enough?
Well,
to see class as a whole go away?
I guess not for me, at least. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I heard about it Saturday at Empire as we were running our last Western New York Super Rod Association race. Somebody had mentioned to me that rumor had it that IHRA was killing off all their class racing and going to a bracket-only format. Now, for the people that may have been racing IHRA and really following the tour, let's call it, year-round, they may have gotten an inkling beforehand. It's funny because I actually look back on a post that I put on Facebook a year or so ago, and they talked about how IHRA was expanding in Australia. And at that point in time on Facebook, I actually posted that I could see where this is going. It's like the International Hot Rod Association is going to be just that, and they're going to stop racing in the U.S. and start really concentrating on Australia or England or places like that. So I can't say that I really saw this coming. I could have, if you would have told me that IHRA was going to kill off stock and super stock and continue with the rod classes and top sportsman and top dragster, I could have believed that. Mm-hmm. But I'm a little surprised that they decided to kill off everything and go strictly to a bracket race format. So I guess, I will say one thing in their defense. It's very difficult for them to justify continue doing what they were doing just because of the fact that attendance at the races was not really stellar by any means. So the old adage of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? And this past year they had a couple of races where they had an anonymous donor give a $5,000 bonus to the super rod class. So, I mean, they were paying $6,500, basically $6,500 to win plus contingency at those races. And really, they didn't draw any more cars at those races than any other race where they only pay, $1,200 to win. So it really makes you wonder, well, it must not be about money. There must be something else, some other inherent reason why people don't run with IHRA. But, yeah, it's, like I said, I didn't see it coming.
What's been some of the feedback so far? I mean, at this point, this has got to put a wrench in the plans for Empire.
Well, I would say it certainly does. I've heard rumors about Empire over the summer as well. I know that Dave Moen from NHRA has been out to Empire and talked to Jerry about potentially switching over to NHRA for 2018. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, that's part of Dave's job. Part of Dave's job as Division I director is he's supposed to go out and try to, basically sell tracks on being NHRA members. So, right. My guess is that happens all the time. It probably happens yearly that NHRA guys go to tracks and IHRA guys go to tracks and try and get them to swap back and forth.
Recruiting missions.
What was that?
Recruiting missions.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I don't know. If they sign contracts, my guess is that they probably do sign contracts. That's probably not a year-to-year thing. But, yeah, so that in of itself didn't surprise me that Dave was out at Empire. But, did the member tracks of IHRA get some sort of inkling or warning beforehand? Hey, guys, this is the last year that we're running this standard format and we're switching? That's possible.
But wouldn't somebody have talked before then? I mean, wouldn't you have heard about this before then if they had some sort of foresight?
You certainly would have thought so.
Because the track knows that they're going to try and do the right thing by their drivers and be up in front of it. And once the drivers know about it, they're going to go berserk.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think that IHRA would have gone to the lengths where they would have said, hey, you know what, we're going to put you under a gag order and you have to sign this legal document. And if you, say anything that we're, coming after you with our lawyers.
Some sort of non-disclosure?
Yeah, I don't think they would have done that. And now I will say that, as a track owner, like, Jerry is with Empire, if you had a scheduled race, so in this case it was the Summit Pro-Am race. If you had a scheduled Summit Pro-Am race and they told you this beforehand, you probably wouldn't go blabbing about IHRA's 2018 plans before that race happened, because they certainly could say, hey, you know what, because you did that, we're going to pull those races from you.
Sure.
And put them someplace else. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, honestly, I don't think that that's probably true. But, yeah, I don't know if just within the last few weeks these guys got some type of inkling as far as what was going on. Like I said, I mean, I had heard that on Saturday. One of the drivers told me that this is what – and it wasn't even like this is kind of what I heard, the way the driver told it to me. And I don't remember who it was off the top of my head. I would have guessed that it was probably one of the West New York Super Auto Association guys. But the way that it was told to me was that, they knew this as a certainty that this was happening. And then I want to say it was on Sunday that it was posted on Class Racer and a couple other places, and people were messaging me like crazy. Hey, did you see this? You got to go check out the message boards. And then by Monday morning, my guess is that IHRA really didn't have any plans on announcing it on Monday. Maybe they did, but it certainly seemed coincidental that it was spread like wildfire over the weekend, and then first thing Monday morning they had the actual announcement.
Wouldn't it be smart to let it trickle out, let the wildfire go over the weekend, and then put the official announcement out Monday after all, everybody has stopped complaining?
Well, I mean, that's what they did, but I have to say that, I think there are lots of people, myself included, that, yeah, you hear lots of rumors, all the rest of it, but I generally don't believe those rumors until I see official announcements, just because over the course of the years you hear and all sorts of different stuff. You hear, read, whatever. So, yeah, I mean, for me personally, I mean, I won't say that I discounted it completely, but I didn't completely believe it either. I wouldn't have, bet my year's salary on the fact that they were going to be doing this.
It just almost doesn't make sense.
Right, right. But, yeah, but once the official announcement came out, I will say that's when pretty much everybody came out, and, it was a big conversation topic pretty much everywhere. And, I mean, there are some people, I think, that are pretty happy about it, those people that are just bracket racers, if you will. But for the most part, I have to say that it was almost unanimously people are not really in favor of this. And it could just be the fact that the people that are negative about the idea are the guys that are currently running in one of the IHRA classes. It's maybe it is just a squeaky wheel type of thing. I'm not really sure, but like I said, I mean, really, if you were to ask me what percentage of the people were not in favor of it, I probably would have said 90%. Thought it was a bad idea,
right?
And myself included. And it's not because of the fact that I think that, let's call it the formula that they had previously was a great formula for success, but I don't think that running a bracket series per se is going to right the ship for IHRA and make them a profitable organization. I mean, here's what it gets down to. There are big bracket races everywhere right now. So what is it that IHRA is going to offer that is different from everybody else? And why does a track need IHRA to run one of their bracket races? Currently, there are, like I said, there's big bracket races everywhere. They're held by
pretty serious money promoters down south.
Oh, absolutely.
They're doing just fine. Running.
Yep.
I don't know if you can call it independent or if they build their own circuit, whatever way you want to look at it. But they're operating without having any particular IHRA banner over the top of them,
right,
and being completely successful.
Right. We'll use the Fling series. We had Sal Biondo on earlier this year, right? Mm-hmm. 3 big races. I want to say the last race, what did they have first round? I think they had 380 cars first round. And, at a huge track, this was at Bristol, so, there's a lot of overhead for them to rent that track for the weekend. Bristol doesn't make any money off of this. This is all the Fling, the guys, Peter Biondo and right, Kyle Seipel. It's all those guys that are the ones that are doing this.
It's not some racetrack that was carved out of a chunk of woods in Bristol, Virginia. It's Bristol Motor Speedway.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So you're racing at a premier track, and for big money. The races overall, I want to say, were over 3 or 4 days. I think the lowest amount they raced for might have been $20,000. Maybe 10.
He was throwing some serious numbers around when he was on.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure on Saturday, I think Saturday was the big race, and somebody might correct me here, but I'm pretty sure that Saturday was a $50,000. I think it was $50,000 on Saturday, 30 on Friday and Sunday, and $20,000 on the Thursday race. A lot of money. And if you look at the IHRAs, now again, and I'll give IHRA the benefit of the doubt to a certain extent, because at this point in time, they really haven't announced any details other than the fact that they have gone away from class racing and they're going strictly to a bracket program. But if you look at just the numbers themselves and you say, okay, before they had probably on the order of, well, let's call it Super Rod. And Super Rod at Pittsburgh, I think they had 40 cars for first round. So now you're going to have $150 per entry times 40 cars. Now, Super Rod was one of the bigger classes at Pittsburgh. Hot Rod is typically one of the bigger classes as well. Quick Rod typically doesn't have a lot of cars. Super Stock and Stock typically don't have a lot of cars. Top Sportsman and Top Dragster, I would say, I don't think they got 32 car fields in either of those. But even if you said, all right, just for grins, let's make it that they have 32 cars in Top Sportsman and Top Dragster, 40 in Super Rod, another, 30 in Hot Rod, and you might get to 200 cars total, but I don't think for the most part that their events drew that many people. Right. So now if you're going to say, all right, well, we're going to split them up into a box and no box class. So we're going to basically have 100 cars in each times $150. That's $15,000 that they're pulling in. What are they going to pay to win? Now they have overhead, so they have to share their revenue with the track. Empire or any other IHRA track is not going to want them to come in and not make any money on it, so they have to share this revenue. They have their own staff that they have to pay as well, amongst carrying the other IHRA overhead that they have. And once you start talking about ROM money, they're not going to pay, if you're taking in $15,000 for, let's call it the box class, you're not going to pay $10,000 to win and $5,000 to runner up. Right? So, because there goes all your money. There goes all your money. So more than likely, the way I see this happening is that, it's going to be $150 to enter, but they're probably going to pay, $5,000 to win, $2,500 or $3,000 to runner up, and and then they'll have round money aside from that. My guess is they'll keep some of their contingency program in place, so that will, help sweeten the pot a little bit. But $5,000 to win for $150 to enter really is nothing special. And again, you look at the Fling races, I want to say, and hopefully no one holds me to this, but I think it was $650 to enter for the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday race.
That gets you in all three.
That gets you into all three, right. And you're racing for $20,000, $50,000, and $30,000 or something like that. So to spend $150 just for entry to win $5,000, like I said, really isn't anything special.
It breaks down to like $220 a night.
Yeah, for a lot more money than what you're getting, potentially out of a $5,000 race, right?
What about those races in terms of, you were talking, you hit on the attendance. Not so much the car count, but the attendance itself. The fans that come and sit in the grandstands to watch these races that go all night long. Is everybody in the same boat in terms of the number of people that they're drawing?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're drawing 380 cars, you're going to have people in the stands because the racers that are waiting in line for 5 hours to come back around, they're going to come and watch some of the passes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly...
But your casual fan isn't coming to come out and watch that. But they're also not coming out to watch casually any of the other bracket programs.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, none of the bracket races generally are going to draw spectators that are somehow not associated or affiliated with the racers that are out there. But I don't know, I'm sure the tracks themselves probably have some type of formula that they deal with. But, basically every car that shows up, for the most part, is going to bring at least one person with them. And my guess is it's probably, once you start going to bigger events, it's probably even over 2 is probably what the average is. Because, a guy's going to go, he's going to bring his kids, he's going to bring his wife, or, maybe he brings, a couple of buddies or whatever else. So it's pretty rare that somebody just shows up by themselves and they don't have anybody else with them.
You might be the only person in America that does.
Well, even I have Phil that comes with me, so so it's me and Phil. But
so there's your 1.6 right there.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, but that's typical for bracket racing. That's really what the spectator count is going to be. Is going to be the people that come along to help. Whether it's big dollar or small dollar, or whether it's hosted by IHRA or just by a track, it's not really going to make a difference one way or the other. So they're not going to make any money from spectators from that standpoint.
Right.
I don't see how this is going to be viable for them economically to even continue with this, with this formula. Now, that said, I mean, maybe they have something up their sleeve that I'm not aware of. I would, in years past, they've had a points fund. You are champ. I mean, let's take Pete Dagnola, for instance. I mean, he was super stock champ, world champ this year and last year. I don't know what he got paid last year, but I think this year for world champ, he got $15,000. So, that, my guess, probably comes out of the Summit sponsorship money. Now, how is IHRA going to do it this year? Are they going to have an actual point series where whoever wins the most rounds, they're going to be the champ for the year? Right. Or are they going to say, we're not going to have a point series, and what we're going to do is we're going to help each of those purses at each of those races by taking the Summit sponsorship money and kind of distributing it over 8 races. Maybe that's what they're doing, and maybe they will pay 10 or 15 grand at every race. But
does that? I mean, what does that? That comes with a cost, though, doesn't it? I mean, doesn't that come with? Let me flesh this out a little bit. I mean, don't you want to have the prestige and the incentive to try and get more drivers to travel so that they can accumulate points so that you can crown a champion? I mean, it seems like there's certainly some value and some bragging right and capitalizing on the typical racer ego where they want to be the best of the best and be recognized as such.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, if you look at how do I want to continue to draw cars back to my program? All right, I'm coming into, let's call it Rochester, New York, and we're going to Empire Dragway, and we're going to have a double bracket race there Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be, let's even call it 10 grand to win. Well, they're only going to do that one weekend at Empire. Then they're going to go to Pittsburgh. Then they're going to go to Maryland. Then they're going to go to Memphis. So they're going all these places. Now, how do I get, other than just local guys to come to those races, how do I entice some of the other people to do it? And again, even at 10 grand to win, that's not going to be really enough to entice somebody in Rochester to go down to Memphis for the weekend. Right. But I happen to go to the Rochester race and I won, and I'm currently top 3 in the points, and I stand to win some more money. All right, now I will get in the car and
at least
drive.
Consider Pittsburgh.
Right, yeah, right. Sure, right, absolutely, right. So I think that's really the downside to not having a points program, is the fact that you lose that allure to potentially draw people in. And you're absolutely right. I mean, guys want to be able to say at the end of the year, not only did I win a couple of races, but it's a big deal to be able to say, I was crowned the overall series champ, And
again, we don't know what we don't know. The IHRA may still have some sort of points series out there, but what it looks like hasn't been the the curtain has been pulled off on that part of it yet. I'd like to invite everybody at this point. We're about 15, 20 minutes in at this point. The phone lines are open if anybody has anything to weigh in on. We had a lot of good feedback over our shows the last 3 or 4 episodes. Between the Biondo episode had some good traction. Last week, the Pappas episode, well, 2 weeks ago, the Pappas episode had some great traction and stuff, and some folks were sharing some anecdotes and some stories, so we wanted to give them the opportunity to sort of share some of those.
Yep.
So we'd kicked around the idea of doing this call-in show, and then we got this to talk about. So,
Right.
So I imagine there's people out there with an opinion. You've got the opportunity to call the numbers on the screen, 315-712-0104. You're going to go through the high-tech operator when I pick up this phone, and I tell you that you're on the air, and we'll throw you in, and you can weigh in on any number of the topics that we've hit on the last couple of weeks, in addition to what we've got, kind of going on tonight. That's at the forefront, and there's. You were alluding earlier to how this information came out, and I feel like it wasn't time for it to come out yet. We're still at a point where there's a lot of racing left to go, at least in the South. I mean, there's parts of the country that race year-round just because the weather permits it.
Yep.
And there's no other details that came out with it. Now, I understand the whole progressive release thing, where you put the information out there, you let the dust settle, and now all of a sudden you're the hero because you come out with this new version of sliced bread, and you stagger that stuff out. It keeps the conversation going right up until the first of the year as you let out a little bit of a piece and a little bit of a piece and a little bit of a piece. So we might be at ground zero of that type of thing, where there's going to be this staggered release of information, but it would almost seem that if you're going to put something out there that's going to carry this much of a blow and get the reaction that it did, that you would have at least a couple of the positive upgrades that are coming on the backside of this, because you can't just close the door on this and not have a backup plan, a part 2 or episode 2, so to say, as part of the story. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's not going to kill any of the division racing. The class racing is not going to die because of this. So I wonder a lot about what the end game is.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know either. I mean, for the guys that are most upset about this really are the guys that were racing IHRA stock and super stock, primarily because they had some fairly unique classes. And I'm not an expert in this, so hopefully nobody beats me up about it. I know in super stock they had a crate motor class. Now, I don't know if they had a stock crate motor class as well, but they don't have a crate motor class in NHRA. So a lot of the guys that were racing stock and super stock for IHRA now have no place to go with their particular combination. So they're looking and saying, geez, I built this crate motor car to race IHRA Superstock. Now what do I have? I have a glorified bracket car with it. So those are the guys who are definitely at the moment seem to be the most vocal and the most upset about it. Now, it's not that they don't have other places to race at all. And again, the stock and super stock programs are things that I don't follow very closely. But you have the Can-Am Stock Super Stock series, which does allow the crate motor classes to run in them. So those guys can go and run with the Can-Am Stock Super Stock guys.
How about what do they have for weight breaks? I mean, if you're running a crate motor, do they have weight breaks?
They have different weight breaks depending upon what motor combination you're running. And I'm not the guy really to talk to about this.
I just assumed that crate motors around here, when you start talking about crate motors, you're talking about crate 602s and the 604s that are going into sportsman modifieds and late models.
Yeah.
And it added all sorts of new life to both of those divisions. I mean, Fulton Speedway got to a point where they had to run full point double features for their sportsman class because they were getting so many cars on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And it's very, very heavily attributed to that crate influx.
Right.
And they had to figure out how to make that work, and a lot of the tracks had gone away even from their open sportsman stuff. And again, these are open wheel modifieds. So I got to believe that at least somehow was a similar transition with the inception of the crate engine program with drag racing.
I'm sure.
It put cars back on the track that
Right.
wouldn't have been there.
Right, that's right. And again, I don't know what the rules are, so I don't know if they have cubic
Future
gates.
episode. We got to make some phone calls. Future episode.
Right. Yeah. Get one of those guys on. FJ Smith, he's the guy that runs the stock or the Can-Am Super Stock Series, and my guess is he's probably pretty knowledgeable about this.
Think so.
I mean, I don't know who else I would talk to. I'm sure there's guys out there that are currently running, the crate motor classes that could chime in, but. I don't know really how all of this worked out for those, but like I said, there were some unique combinations for the IHRA stock and super stock classes, and those are the guys that are kind of upset. For the rod classes, I mean, quick rod, super rod, and hot rod, I mean, they're essentially 100% the same as NHRA's. Super Gas, Super Comp, and Super Street. I think the only real difference that I can think of is that Hot Rod, the 1090 class, in IHRA was a 2,600-pound minimum weight, where NHRA's Super Street is a 2,800-pound minimum weight. So that's about the only real difference. But there are options for those guys to go race. So if you're racing Hot Rod, you could go run the TNT Super Series that Ted Barnes runs. If you were running Super Rod, you could come run with the Western New York Super Rod Association or the Mid-Atlantic Super Gas Association out on the East Coast. Those guys have some options. And for the most part, they also can just go race NHRA for the most part. But like I said, the crate motor stock, super stock guys with some of these unique combinations, I don't know what they do now. I guess they either go spend a bunch of money, or maybe you get lucky and you happen to fall into one of the NHRA classes. I don't know. But those are the guys, like I said, they're the ones that are really upset kind of about this.
The rumor that I heard this morning was the Western New York Super Rod Association was creating a crate division.
Yeah, exactly.
Capitalizing on the niche market.
Right.
But this is just a rumor. I didn't see that confirmed anywhere.
Yeah, I will say that I have no plans on running any sort of super stock series. I'm going to leave that to Mr. Smith and the Can-Am Super Stock series. And some people have asked me, overall with the Western New York Super Rod Association, what does this mean for us? Do we expect to see more cars and bigger attendance at our races now because guys are losing out on the opportunity to race with IHRA? And honestly,
and you're not sanctioned by anybody. You're independent.
Yeah,
you're sanctioned. The Western New York Super Rod Association is sanctioned by the Western New York Super Rod Association. Nobody else.
That's right. Yeah, so, and I don't know, I really don't know. I can't say that I really expect more attendance. Now, maybe if I tried, maybe it's an opportunity, if you will, to go out and say, all right, we're going to try and put together a really big series with big money, all the rest of it. You could do that, but, the problem that I have is that I have a full-time job, too. So there's only so much time I can spend on this. And, we already paid better than IHRA did. This season, in previous seasons. So the 4 years that we've been in existence, our entry fee and payout has basically been better than what IHRA's was, minus contingency. Do I expect that now, because IHRA is defunct, that we're going to get 50 cars at every race? If we weren't drawing those guys before, I have a hard time believing that we're going to draw them now.
Why wouldn't you draw them now?
Yeah.
How many times are we running against IHRA races?
Well, I will say that what we did, in particular, because of Empire being an IHRA track and our guys really following the IHRA races pretty closely, is we made sure that we pretty much never conflicted with IHRA races that we thought our guys would go to. Sure. We did have a few NHRA race conflicts, but, again, there's not many guys that run with us that run with the NHRA. And when you look at what the closest races are, really closest race to us was Lebanon Valley, which is 3.5 hours away. And that's the closest race. Then once you go from there, now you're talking about going 4.5 hours to Norwalk, or 6 hours to Maple Grove, 6 hours to Echo, 6 hours to Englishtown. That's a long haul, and I'm not expecting to be able to draw from that far away for guys to come race with us. Now, I don't know. Maybe guys will now.
What's the winner's share on your races? It's a low entry.
It's a low entry. It's a sliding share. Depends upon where you're at. But I mean, if we draw 17 cars, at 17 cars, we pay $1,000 to win. We always run an optional. That's for $75 entry fee. We always run an optional $25 Calcutta on top of it. Which for 17 cars, you're going to get at least another 12 to 14 guys going to that, so you're going to have another 300 to 350 on top of that. Right. So yeah, to win, you're going to be looking at $1,300, $1,400 to win for a $100 entry versus IHRA, which was, I'm pretty sure, $150 to enter, $1,200 to win. Mm-hmm. Plus, you had to have the IHRA membership, and depending upon
there's a licensing program.
Depending upon the car, I mean, there's licensing as well. Now, yeah, we do have our own membership as well to fund our points. I think I forget what our membership was, $75, but that goes to fund the points.
Entry fee.
Yeah, basically. And what my guys are telling me is like, look, our entry fee is too low. We'd prefer that you raise it so we can race for even more money. Which you
don't hear a lot in racing.
No, you don't. But I get it, just because of the fact that the entry fees are really a small portion of what the total cost is to go racing. And I think that's one thing with the IHRA is that you start talking about going to race for $1,200 to win, let's call it. If you're going away for a weekend, you're definitely going to spend $1,000 for the weekend between the cost for fuel in the rig to get there, your entry fees, racing fuel, and this isn't including wear and tear on the vehicle. You're going to spend $1,000 to go away for a weekend.
I think, isn't that low? I mean, you're going to go through, how much is a set of tires just on the car?
Well, a set of tires is $500, but I mean, you get, depending on how much you're racing, you'll get at least half a season out of a set of slicks. So, yeah, it's not like we don't.
Not as bad as I thought.
Yeah, it's not too. And like I said, I mean, that doesn't include wear and tear on the vehicle. But I mean, once you add it all together, you're going to spend $1,000 to go away. Assuming you're towing, let's call it, 4 or 5 hours away, you're going to spend $1,000. Well, it's hard to justify spending $1,000 to go racing when you're racing for $1,000. You're like, well, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? I mean, I'm going to beat the crud out of all my stuff, and at the end of the day, I'm going to basically win my money back if I'm lucky. So, and I will say that was one thing with NHRA. Not that the payout with NHRA is great. It's certainly nowhere near what it used to be. But to go race an NHRA national event, you're going to win probably, well, I'll say $6,000 to $8,000 with contingency. It's going to be a lot different than, or a lot more money than what IHRA was paying.
Right.
Now, granted, the NHRA, and that's part of the problem, I guess we'll call it with IHRA. You really have to compare IHRA's sportsman pro-ams with NHRA's national events, because IHRA didn't have any other events. They used to have the divisional national type of races like NHRA did, but they did away with those and went strictly to these sportsman pro-am races. So if you're going to compare IHRA to NHRA, you're really comparing, racing for $1,200 to win for a $150 entry versus running for, let's call it on average maybe $8,000 to win for, I think it's like a $300 entry now for NHRA. It's pretty expensive. But, that said, is that the only reason why people didn't run IHRA? No, I don't think it was.
There's some purses that were cut last couple of years too, right?
Well, I guess I don't know specifically. There may have been. And this is nothing against Empire or Pittsburgh or any of the other IHRA tracks that we've raced at over the years. But Empire, and I think Jerry would tell you this, I mean, it's a work in progress, right? I mean, he bought it 3 years ago. He's put a lot of money into it, and I love all the upgrades that he's made.
We've had a couple conversations with Patrick Budd about that very topic.
Right.
Building. You got to build the program.
Right. But, Empire is not at the same level of facility as Norwalk is or Indy is or Bristol is. or Gainesville, or Charlotte, or Vegas. So, NHRA is...
You want to keep going? Englishtown, Norwalk? How far
Englishtown. There's some NHRA tracks that are not the greatest, but in general, the tracks that NHRA races at are the premier tracks in the country. Now, I heard really good things about Dragway 42. We were planning on going there. It's kind of, I guess, ironic the fact that Dragway 42 was supposed to be opened years ago, finally opens this year. They finally host their first IHRA race just a couple of weeks ago to pretty good reviews, and it's like, well, we just blew that whole thing up, so who knows? I have no idea what they're going to do now. I think part of it is the fact that you have people that want to run at only the premier tracks in the country. There is definitely... If
you have the chance to go run at a track that you saw on TV, no matter where you saw it, you want to go run there.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And I have to say that, for me, I've raced a bunch of the different tracks. There's certainly some tracks NHRA tracks that I have not competed at that I would like to go to. I'd like to go to Charlotte and compete there. I'd like to go to Indy. That's on my bucket list for sure. But there definitely is I'm trying to think of how I can put this. There's definitely what is the word I'm looking for? People that feel that IHRA was like running the minor leagues, basically. And I don't know if it's because of the fact that the facilities were not as good as NHRA's facilities. But, you have guys that ran in the IHRA, or even still do run in the IHRA, that run NHRA races as well. And are really, really good competitors. So if you win an IHRA race, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's, you're a second-class citizen that, you didn't really win a good race with tough competitors. Steve Furr, for instance. Steve Furr is a perennial top 10 player in the NHRA Super Gas, Super Comp categories. Mm-hmm. And before he really started competing in NHRA pretty significantly, he spent a ton of time in the IHRA, right. And doing very, very well there. I'm trying to think of the kid's name out of Ohio that was the Super Gas World Champ last year. So he lost at Indy on this past year, first day. So he must have lost on Thursday or Friday. It was $5,000 to win, or $6,500 to win at Pittsburgh, and it was Norwalk actually. That's where he was, where he lost early. And he got in the car. He put the car in the trailer and drove out to Pittsburgh to go race out there. So from his standpoint, it was like, hey, here's a good paying race that I can go to that's fairly close, and why would I not go race there? And
Tedesco was the name I just came up with. That's not it, is it?
No, it wasn't Mia. Maybe it was 2 years ago that he was world champ.
I also come across Nick Folk.
Yeah, no, it wasn't the Folks. So the Folks, actually, there's another set of competitors that spent a lot of time in the IHRA. There are guys that certainly don't look at the IHRA races and think to themselves, yeah, I'm too good to race at these events. But there are guys out there that want no part of it just because of the fact that they think they don't want to stoop, I guess, to that level.
So how long before we get the email about cease and desist?
For talking about IHRA, you mean?
Yeah.
I guess that's a good question. At this point, it's all rumor and conjecture to a certain extent, right? So, yeah. We're giving our...
I don't feel like we've said anything negative, right?
I don't think so.
Eye of the beholder.
Maybe they've heard something that they don't like. But, I will say that. I haven't raced with NHRA. Well, I guess that's not true. I went to Lebanon Valley a couple of years ago. But, that's the first NHRA race that I've raced at in quite some time. And it's not because I don't like NHRA, but, I did my traveling, went on the tour, did all of that. And really over the last few years, I've pretty much been concentrating on Western New York Super Route Association stuff and going to an occasional IHRA Sportsman Pro-Am race. So, yeah, I knew the money wasn't great there. But, when the two races come to Empire and they're in your backyard, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go to those. We went to Pittsburgh this year. I'd never been to Pittsburgh. We heard it was a nice track. And, paying $6,500 to win on Saturday, it's like, yeah, that's enough to entice me to make the 4-hour tow to go down there and go race that race. So, I don't really have anything. I'm not one of those guys that was hoping for IHRA to fail. But I will, I guess, also call a spade, and I have to say that I don't believe that this is the formula for success.
Right.
And again, my big thing is just
everything's still a bracket format now. They still have races. It's not like they're going under completely.
Right.
The way that they've eliminated the class racing is a move that is going to raise eyebrows.
Well, it's definitely going to raise eyebrows, and the thing I just don't see how they're going to entice people to go race IHRA bracket races versus go race the bracket races that are in their backyard. And I also don't know how they're going to entice tracks to run IHRA bracket races versus just running their own bracket race. Let's take Empire, for instance. They have a big dollar bracket race that John Cera puts on. It's a limited 32-car field. It's $500 to enter. So, yeah, it's a steep entry, but it is limited to a 32-car field. And John was paying $10,000 to win that race. So now how is John didn't, other than going to Jerry and asking Jerry, hey, can we hold this race at your track? They didn't need any special permission. They didn't need any sanctioning or anything else from IHRA, NHRA
and
to be able to
compete. You don't have to have a special license. You don't have
That's
to
right.
have
That's
a membership.
right.
You can just show up and run.
That's right.
Your entry fee is $500.
Right.
For a 1 in 32 shot at $10,000.
That's right. Now you go out to ESTA. Vince Mussolino, he's been running their big dollar bracket race, and I think they'd run a twin 10-grander. It might be 20-grander, but I'll say 10-grander. And again, Vince has been putting this race on for 4 or 5 years, and it's $500 to enter, maybe for the weekend. He didn't need IHRA's permission to do it. They just run this race. New media, this whole month, they have their October Bucks races. Saturday, I think it's $5,000 to win Friday. No, maybe it's $10,000 Saturday and $5,000 Sunday. And I think it's $200 to enter the $10,000 race and $150 to enter the $5,000 race.
You've been trying to get to new media. Is this a good weekend?
I was going to go, but like I said, we're going testing now with Phil. We got to get Phil's car hopefully figured out before we put it away for the winter and then have to wonder all year round what the heck's going on. But yeah, I was planning on going. I was gonna put the Corvette in Billy Lieber's trailer. We're going to go down there and go, I guess, one last hurrah maybe before we put everything away. But there's lots of options. You look at Norwalk. Norwalk, one of the biggest races. They have a couple huge bracket races. Their Halloween Classic, the entry is based on a lottery system because they get so many entries that they can't take everybody.
Really?
And they give away ridiculous prizes. Dragsters and vacations and all sorts of other things that they give away. Not to mention that's a great time with the kids because you go trick-or-treating from trailer to trailer. They have costume contests and they have best pit decorating contest. It's a huge event. Again, they do that on their own. They have a twin or a triple $10,000 race, I think, where it's $120 to enter or $130 to enter for the weekend, and they pay $10,000 to win 3 days.
And that's the lottery race.
That one, I don't know if that's a lottery. I don't know if that's a lottery race or not. But are you kidding? $45 to enter to race for $10,000. Now, John Cera and I talked about that this week, and he's like, yeah, but the problem is you go to those races and you're talking about first rounds, 500 cars, and they run the finals at 6 a.m. every day. And yeah, that's true, but obviously the racers don't care because there's 500 cars that show up and they run the finals at 6 a.m. every day, right? So obviously guys are more...
That makes for a long day because there's got to be buybacks.
Oh, my God. Yeah, it's...
Right.
Yeah, you're talking an 8, 9, 10, 12 round race. And I've heard... I don't know that I ever want to do it because of the fact that I don't know that I want to be running at 3 o'clock in the morning. Would it be a great story for the grandkids to say, yeah, I won one of those races and we ran the final round at 6 a.m.? Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, right now, if you ask me, do you want to go run at 6 o'clock in the morning? The answer is no, I don't.
Not if they've been up since the day before. No.
Right. But yeah, typically, I mean, they're running first round. They're running first round in the afternoon sometime, and it's typically second, third round at 11 o'clock midnight is when second or third round is, and at that point in time,
Jacob Elrod.
Jacob Elrod, yes, thank you. Somebody wrote in, obviously.
John Sierra.
Okay.
He's messaging on Facebook, but he won't call.
He's too scared, but yeah. So, anyways, yeah, Jacob Elrod. Yes, that's who I was thinking of, and Jacob. He was the one that lost at Norwalk early and went out to Pittsburgh and raced out there, and again spent a lot of time racing IHRA before he went on the NHRA circuit, and basically did very, very well. Obviously, being NHRA world champ, so it's not like you go and win one of an IHRA. That if you used to go race an IHRA race and win one of those races, that you were doing it against inferior opponents. Most guys that are racing one are racing both, and well, I should say that most people that were racing IHRA were racing NHRA races too. Usually you don't get guys that just do one or the other, but it is difficult to get the NHRA guys to go to IHRA races for sure.
You got quiet on there. John's light was no longer green next to his name, so he must have chimed in enough.
Oh, he chimed in and tuned out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what, like I said, I don't know what's going on at this point in time. Like I said, I know there's a lot of pretty angry people overall. There's a lot of and I don't know, maybe it's just coincidence. I've happened to see a few different ads on Facebook for equipment for sale, and I don't know if that's due to this or not, or if it's just coincidence, or maybe I'm more sensitive to seeing it now because I think, oh Jesus, this guy selling his throttle stop because of the fact that IHRA just did away with these classes. I don't know. I know that. Jerry and Empire holding the Pro-Am there, that was not a big money maker race for them. So Jerry is not going to look at this and say, oh my God, that's it. We're just going to, close our doors and go out of business. I mean, right now from what I've heard, Empire is still planning, bigger and better things next year. I mean, heck, for God's sakes, I went out there last weekend. Yeah, last weekend it was when we went out for our last race. Now, we were there beginning of September, and I don't know if I was there in between. I get out there, and there's a brand new building out there. I'm like, what the heck is this? I mean, literally in the span of a month, and it's like, come to find out that it's a new concession stand that Jerry built. They took the old one, they kind of shifted it down a little bit, and they're going to take the old concession stand and put it, I guess, over on the other side. I guess they've already put a new roof on the other concession stand on the other side. So Jerry's continually making improvements to the track, right? So this in no way affects what Jerry's long-term goals or plans are for the track. And, my guess is that you're going to probably see more bigger improvements and some big announcements from Empire as far as what their plans are. And I don't think this is really going to affect any of the IHRA tracks. I will say I'm curious to see how many of them sign up for the bracket program. I'm curious to see how many of them just say, hey, you know what, we're done with IHRA and we're jumping ship. I mean, there are some nice tracks in IHRA. Again, I've mentioned some of them, Empire and Pittsburgh and Maryland. I've never been to Memphis, so I can't really comment on it. But it wouldn't be surprised now if, NHRA is going to put the full court press on those guys and say, hey, you know what, we'll give you a division event if you come over to NHRA. And I could see some of those tracks doing that. Now, some tracks may or may not be able to do it depending upon the configuration of the track and if you meet NHRA's safety requirements and stuff like that. So some of them may not be able to. Some may say, hey, you know what, it's worth it for us, so we're going to make the investment into the property to be able to do some of those things. Time will tell. It's very early, but I guess if it were me and I were IHRA, I probably would have released a few more details to...
Isn't it early, though? I mean, we haven't even gotten to the postseason. We're close. I mean, we're close. We've had pretty fortunate weather here the last month. So
right.
A lot of those tracks that do some sort of fall series, they've got the opportunities to continue to race.
Right.
but we're also within 6 weeks of Thanksgiving.
Right.
So that's usually that Thanksgiving time frame is when you start seeing everything coming up for sale because people want money for Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's that's not that far-fetched to think that we're going to see some stuff for cropping up for sale. I was up at the vinyl shop today. We were looking at classifieds for modifieds.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, this is definitely the time of year for that. I mean, yeah, it's not just, engines and components and stuff like that, but trailers. I mean, guys are putting their trailers up for sale now because they want to upgrade in the off season. So it's like, all right, I'm done with it for the year, so I'm going to put it up for sale so I can buy my new one in the spring. And so yeah, I mean, there's lots of that type of stuff going on at the moment. But like I said, we're not done racing yet by any means. Empire still has tests and tunes scheduled for the next 2 weekends at least, and they're holding gamblers races as well. And I think the last time I looked at the weather forecast, the weather was supposed to be pretty nice on Saturday, I thought.
Right.
So, so I still expect that, we'll get at least one more race in. And from there, we're going to have other people as well. Did somebody call in here?
We do. We have someone who called in. I got to make sure that the microphone's on. We got John Cera calling in. John, man, how are you? We're all right. What do you know?
I don't know much. I figure, IHRA thing. I guess the Facebook was kind of crazy the day of with people bashing the move and people doing all sorts of other things and talking negative about it. But in IHRA's defense, they tried for years to do stuff. Guys, NHRA guys said, well, we'll come if there's money. Well, I don't know if anybody remembers this or not. I don't know if you guys talked about it before I called in, but 3 to 5 years ago, they tried a series called the Sportsman Spectacular, which they're going to try and do again with the bracket program, but they tried it for the class races. Those races, we talk about the $5-granders that Pittsburgh was doing for the 990 or whatever. I believe they were in Pittsburgh. Was that where the $5,000 to win races were? I think Pittsburgh was it.
Pittsburgh was one, and Maryland was the other.
They did that in 4 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever it was, for all the classes. It was $5,000 to win all the Sportsman Spectaculars plus contingency. And I think me and Thomas went to Maryland or one of them races for one of them, and they got when he had the Starfire and Superstock down in Racesville car, and there was 14 Superstockers.
Right.
So, they put the money up, and still for some reason, whatever the reason may be, NHRA guys or just guys in general just would not support it. You're talking about the IHRA had these races, and I think they had wanted 100 and something cars was the break-even point. And, Jerry's race at Empire was the third biggest one they had next to, I believe, Darlington and another race down south, and just the cars did not draw. I think the format, the way they changed the format to this year, it was a great money. The $15,000 to win point system was a great idea. The problem with that was when they had the Tournament of Champions in Memphis, they took the top 3 division winners in 6 different divisions. So if you had, a guy that was in the top 5 of a division times 6 divisions, so a guy that's in, 4th place in divisions 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, I believe that's what the divisions were, that guy would go to the end races to try and chase, where now with the national point system, they did, if you're in 5th or 6th place and you're out of claims, a guy's not going to, from South Carolina, is not going to tow all the way to 42 for that final race because he's not going to be able to improve. And I think that kind of hurt them a little bit. But in their defense, they did a whole bunch of things to try and revamp this deal. And for whatever reason, guys just didn't support.
Yeah, and I have to say, John, we did touch on the Pittsburgh and Maryland Super Rod races. And when Phil and I went to Pittsburgh, as we were basically pulling...
I can't really hear you guys. I don't know if it's the microphone or what, but I can't hear what you guys are talking about right now.
How about that? That better?
No.
No? All right.
I'm not really sure, but I guess I'll just continue my thought here. Basically what I was telling Phil was the fact that overall that clearly money was not the reason why guys were not going to the IHRA races, because here was an opportunity for them to go race for $6,500 to win, and I think we had 40 cars first round.
Right.
So yeah, clearly money was not the big issue. Was it an issue? Maybe, but it certainly wasn't the big issue. I guess the question that I have for you, John, is that moving forward, I know that you're being a bracket racer, you're kind of enthused about the new format that they have. So
correct.
Are you going to? And again, this is all it's all rumor and conjecture, right? We have no details about what's happening now. So are you going to tow, let's call it 4 hours to Pittsburgh to run a double $5,000 to win race?
Absolutely.
So for you personally, $150 to enter. So let's call it $300 for the weekend to race for 2 $5,000ers. That is enough to entice you to tow 4 hours to go race that race.
Well, yeah. First of all, I think you're going to get some guys that are going to do it because it's something different. There's always that appeal, that brand new appeal that gets everybody going.
Sure.
It is going to be a limited schedule. It's not like you're going to have to, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a points fund for it, a national points fund for it, and I'm gonna give it a shot. Me and Timothy and Thomas. We're gonna go give it a shot. Just think about it. There's 10 doubles. The way it was put online, there's going to be 10 doubles throughout wherever their tracks are, and they know where their cars are. I would assume that one of these doubles would be at 42. I would assume one of them's at Pittsburgh, so I don't know where else they'd have. I know that, I was thinking there might be one in Florida, but I know that, they lost 3 or 4 tracks to NHRA down there, so I don't know if they would draw down there. It is what it is. It's a business is a business, you know what I mean? If you open a restaurant and your food sucks, no one's going to keep coming back, and you're going to have to make some changes. You know what I mean? You can't. Yes, guys are mad. The crate motor soccer guys are in an uproar, and I understand why. You have a class that does not go. You have a car combination that does not transfer over to NHRA, and that is the downfall, and that does suck. Yes, but if they have these bracket races, I understand that stock is stock and you want to race with those stock eliminator cars, but for me, if I have a D crate motor car and you get rid of maybe this is me as a bracket racer talking, and then just me, if you tell me all the clocks are broken, we can only run to 60 feet, I'm going to dial it in at 60 feet. So with me, if I have a D crate motor car and they got rid of the race where I can run other stockers for 1,100 plus contingency, and they throw in some $5,000ers plus contingency. Well, I guess my crate motor car is now a bracket car,
right?
And I'm gonna go, give that a shot. You know what I mean? We're all wired to do this racing thing, and it's not for 99% of the racing population. This is not a money-making deal. We do this to have fun. We do this for the camaraderie of friends. And yes, we would love to win and make money. But in the end, when you start this deal, unless you're Dan Fletcher or unless you're David Rampy or you're John Force, you're not in this deal to make money. As a business model, to put food on the table, that's not what you're depending on. So these guys, they want to race. They'll figure it out. They got the Can-Am Super Stock Series that allows crate motor cars, and they'll have that to fall back on. But if they still want to race, there will be money races to go to. Is it a big deal if you go to a race and instead of lining up against another crate motor car, you've got another guy over there and you're racing for $5,000 instead of 1,100 plus contingency? We don't know what this program is going to be. I've heard going to be, they could possibly be $5,000ers and plus contingency. You just don't know yet.
Right.
They're going to have to do something to draw. Like Jason's had his valid points. I mean, I have my race for $10,000, and Vince has his twin tens for, $500 entry, and we have no sanctioning fee. I mean, they're not going to make people still pay the sanctioning fee without any real draw, I guess. Maybe I'm rambling on a little bit, but they have to know that I'm not going to call and renew my $100 sanctioning fee to not be able to go race for any kind of decent money. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's got to be something in the works where they're in a room right now with a whiteboard saying, what do we got to put up for these guys to come? I mean, for whatever reason, the bracket groups, the bracket racers, they're a different breed. I mean, they'll travel and race, for $5,000. I mean, where some of the guys didn't want to go and race for whatever the class money was or whatever the case may be. They just had to try something, you know what I mean? And some are going to like it, some are not going to like it, but in the end, had to do something, I don't know if this is their last-ditch effort or whatever, but, I mean, I don't really know what the answer is, I guess. I guess if we all knew the answer,
it'd already be in place.
It'd
already be in place.
Right.
Yeah, and I have to say that, overall, I don't blame IHRA for changing their format, because if the choice was change your format or cease to exist, I would certainly much rather, as a drag racer and a drag racing fan, much rather see them change their format. And I can certainly see where, from a business model standpoint, the previous formula may not have been working for them. That said, I still don't see. And again, it's so early in this, so it's very difficult to say, but it's very difficult for me to see this being the end-all, be-all for them to make them a viable organization. But
I agree.
But that said, I don't want them to fail. I want them to succeed, and I want racers to have different places to be able to go and race and have choices.
Right.
So, yes, I hope this does succeed. But, yeah, there's a lot of questions at this point as to, is this going to work? And until, obviously, we get more details, we're just not going to know the answer to that, right?
Right. I mean, it's kind of sad in a way, too. I mean, it's definitely sad because I remember going to the Empire Nationals at Empire, New York International Raceway Park, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
I mean, I look at my dad has a old qualifying sheet from like Hot Rod or something when he used to run back when you could race your same car in two different classes. How long ago was that? That's got to be 15 years ago. Where Hot Rod, you look at a qualifying sheet and there was 100 cars in Hot Rod alone. I mean, I remember a time where Thomas's dad, Dan, traveled to, like, in his schedule, there was 5, 6, 7 IHRA stops on his schedule. I mean, there was a time where there was a crap load of cars, you know what I mean? And I don't know if the times got too tough for a lot of people or people just got out of the game or whatever, but for some reason, I mean, we went from 100 cars in 80 to 100 in a class to, we were at Empire for their race, and the same weekend there was a double down in Texas or somewhere, and there was 45 cars on the whole property for all the 7 classes, and it's like, this is not good. I mean, I hope, and I'm not just hoping for this to be the answer because I'm a bracket racer and whatever, but I just don't want to see something go away that was a good deal for us, and I'm halfway mad. I don't have a class car. I've never had a class car. My family and friends have class cars, but it's a little upsetting to me that, people didn't show up. You know what I mean? People did not show up for whatever reason, and it's kind of sad. I mean, it's, you want to have options. Like you said, Jason, you want to have options. So you want to be able to go to Norwalk for the divisional. You want to be able to go here for the double. The format was great. You can go there. You run 2 races. You're not just, you know what it's like. You used to be all the NHRA races. For a national event, you got to leave Wednesday morning, and you go down the track 5 times in that weekend. You went some rounds and did good over the course of 5 days. where an IHRA race you could, IHRA was more working man friendly, as you could say. I mean, we used to leave Friday night after work and we would go race 2 races. I mean, it was more racer friendly, and it's very, very shameful and pitiful and maddening that it just wasn't supported. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I hope that, I hope them guys, there's no reason that some of them guys can't keep running it. I mean, top dragster guys, top sportsman guys, they could still run top. I mean, top eliminator guys, superstar guys can still run, mod. I mean, it's not totally dead. I understand the class racing was a different breed, but I mean, and they're all mad about it. But it had to do something, and it's a shame because it was really fun to watch and fun to do, and it just kind of sucks, Well,
I'm right there with you. I mean, I think back about the glory days of, the Empire Nationals, and last time I raced at Norwalk, it was still an IHRA track, and first round of Super Gas, we had 128 cars at the track,
yep.
And obviously the downturn of the economy in 2007-8. I mean, obviously that hurt some, but we've seen a decline in attendance at races. It started happening before 2008, especially.
I agree.
Especially with IHRA. I mean, IHRA, I would guess it probably went back to when Bill Bader sold IHRA. That I think was, I don't want to call it the beginning of the end, but I think that's when we really started to see the big decline.
Right.
And,
I agree.
And I don't know if that was because of the fact they went to. Really, it was a circus act, right? Their circus act style show that they had when, what the heck was the Feld Entertainment or whatever the heck it was when those guys. I don't know if that was, people didn't want to be associated with that or what the issue was, but this has been coming for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you that I hope that this can salvage. Let's call it IHRA, or even if they decided to call it something else, I don't really care what they call it. They can call it whatever they want. But as long as there's still some options again for racers to go race, I'm all for it.
Right. I mean, they probably look at their whole deal with the Summit Super Series and how much participation they have in that. Whereas, I mean, next weekend in Memphis, you're going down there and racing for a $10 investment. I mean, granted, if you have an X number in IHRA, it's basically what that is if you win at your track and you go down to Memphis. Well,
right.
Basically, they're trying to get into that pool of people that basically love the brag race. I mean, there's got to be, I think there's over 8,000 IHRA members with X numbers in the country. Maybe they're trying to draw some of that and give them guys a reason to maybe, other than the bracket finals, you don't really have a place to showcase your talents at other tracks. Maybe they're trying to dip into that. I mean, the Summer Super Series pays $20,000. Maybe they're going to try and do something along those lines for a national points system. I don't really know. It's too early to tell. I just hope that it's something enticing for people so that they just don't disappear.
Right.
But either way, it sucks.
It's very succinct.
My whole family's got class cars. My dad's got a 990 car and a stocker and a super stocker. Maybe there. I mean, and nowadays there's a lot going on. I mean, there's stuff all the time, and I know everyone does their best to not conflict with each other's stuff. But I know, Jason, you do a good job of making sure that nothing is going on the top of your races, and it's very, very hard. I mean, and again, I think it's a money thing. You know what I mean? Or guys just don't, like you said earlier, right? When I tuned in, I mean, to go out of town, you're looking at $1,000 minimum.
Right.
You go out of town to race for a weekend. I mean, I'm going to go to New Media this weekend, and I'm going to leave the house with $1,000 for 3 races this weekend. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm thinking at $1,000 with 3 races that with alcohol and fuel. I mean, may have to hit an ATM up. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of guys. A lot of people aren't in the position where they can do that twice a month anymore. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of money. It's a ton of money, right?
A lot of money, and that doesn't include. I mean, like you said, I mean, you're going to run hopefully 20 to 25 passes in my truck this weekend, and
right.
wear and tear, and slicks and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it all adds up quick, you know?
Yep.
Wow.
Maybe people just don't have the cash anymore, but then, you go and say that, and then on the other hand, you look at an NHRA qualifying sheet at some races, and there's 105 cars in stock eliminator, so you don't really know I don't know. There's no, I guess, if we all had the crystal ball and knew what it was, we'd all be millionaires, I guess, you know?
True.
Well, yeah, and I know obviously IHRA is not the only ones that are having issues. I know that, and I forget exactly what the race was, but I know there was a race out at Empire. Oh, well, no, you know what? I take that back. What it was the Summit Pro-Am at Empire when how many of the 470 guys came to run Top Sportsman at the IHRA Pro-Am, right? I think there was 3 guys there.
I'm not even sure if it was that many. I think it was Andy Gregory, I think, was your lone guy in that runs 470 that ran Top Sportsman.
Yeah, and that, to me, I don't understand that.
Me neither. It's baffling. I mean, even the same thing with a lot of the top dragster guys. I mean, them guys love qualified fields and they love the ladder, but I mean, you could have had a slower dragster who still snuck in. I mean, you're talking about a four round race for $1,500. I mean, I know it's not the best money, and let's not get me wrong, it's certainly not the best by any means, but the contingency money in IHRA was more this year for the Pro-Ams than it was in the last few years. I mean,
right.
It used to be $100 for a sticker to win. This year it was $2.
Yep.
So I mean, if a man had 8 to 10 stickers, which I mean, a lot of the average racer like us, could have. I think my dad had 7 or 8, and I think Pete might have had 10. Thomason had 10. So if you think about it, I mean, you get your $1,200 for winning, and if you do win, I mean, it's still not like you're going to leave the house and going to run for $1,000 only. I mean,
that's right.
You could have went and picked up $3,000, or heaven forbid, you went there and won 2 4-round races and made 6.
Right.
I mean, it's certainly not enough, in my opinion, to stay home. Anybody around here, this area is flooded with dragsters. I mean, for a man to not roll an hour from Rochester to race there for 4-round race for $3,000 is just beyond me. I don't understand it. I mean, it's the same thing. You have a $60,000 race car. You're just going to let it sit there. You're not going to go run, try and win some money. I don't understand the mentality, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just part of that different breed. Like I said, I mean, if a lot of guys, don't 1 quarter, they only like to run 8. Well,
right.
There's a breed out there that if all them clocks were broken and we had to dial in at 60 feet, I'm looking at my logbook and dial 169 to the 8
right.
to the 60 foot. I mean, I just don't understand the mentality of a lot of people nowadays where they want to race for money, but then they end up not wanting to race. I don't know. I don't know the magic answer for the world's racing problems, but
well, now that we just called everybody out, we'll see if we can get any of those losers that didn't show up to call into the show, right, and defend their position.
Oh boy! Lines in the sand now.
Just like for my race, I mean, guys tell me, ooh, $500. That's a steep entry. John, June, they all call me Junior. Yeah, Junior, that's $500 is steep. I'm like, I understand that. $500 is steep, but your car is worth, you have how much invested in your vehicle?
Right.
If you an average 7-second dragster, you're spending 20, 30, 40 grand. I mean, we go and beat our stuff up. Luckily, Jerry pays very well for a local track. I mean, he pays $1,000 in Super Pro.
Yep.
But before, we'll go beat our stuff up for $700, $800, $1,000. But when the opportunity arises for $10,000, we're all like, whoa, I don't know about that $500. I don't understand it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's where we live. I mean, down south, there's money races 6 days a week. I don't know if it's just where we live is a bad area or if everything should just be racing down south. I don't know.
Well, I do think that our area is part of it. I think that's
you put a 10,000 to win show on. You put that on the table for $500. There's something that happens to a driver mentally where they think that much money is going to draw that much different talent from that much further away, and they start looking at how can I compete with those people if they can throw $500 down like it's no big deal and I'm struggling, then I'm already going to be running against the wind, so to say. And the big money chases some people away.
I agree, but I mean, it's not like our area is short on racing quality. I mean, I would take. I could take if there was a box no box race and you had to fill a team of cars of 10 guys on each side. I can go through my people in this area that I think that I'm, that I would roll with anywhere and think that I could beat anybody. You know what I mean? I can pick 10 no box cars and 10 box cars, and let's go, boys, and we'll go anywhere. And I think we can hang with anybody. So I don't know if it's yes, the money probably scares people a little bit. People feel the pressure. I mean, we all had those rounds where you pull in the burnout box, and you got the butterflies, you're nervous. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe it's easier. I don't know. I got nothing. I got no answers.
It's easier. It's definitely easier to come up with reasons to talk yourself out of racing for big money than it is to come up with reasons to talk yourself into going and racing for big money. I can see that.
I don't know. I mean, yes, I'm sure. Obviously, money is a big deal. I mean, we shouldn't be going to races we can't afford, and if you're that worried about it, then you shouldn't have left the house. But I mean, we all dream of holding the big checks and whatever. I mean, that's what we're all in this to do. You know what I mean? I'm going to Memphis next weekend. That's for the Summer Super Series, and I'm hoping to hold that big check for $20,000. I'm not going to drive 16 hours and go there and be scared. And I didn't want to be red, so I set up a little loose. No, I'm going to go there. I'm going to try and be a savage and just win everything. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be scared of it.
But don't you have to have that mentality? I mean, in theory, shouldn't every person that's in the pits have the mentality that I'm here because I can win this race?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Most guys are there because, and there's a lot of guys out there that don't care if they win, and they're just there to have fun. They're there to hang out with their friends. They're there to escape the wife for a day or two. They're there to drink margaritas or drink beers or whatever. And then there's that select few that are there for business. They're there to win. Some people, I'm not a good loser. I'm an asshole for an hour after I lose. After I lose, I'm not. I mean, I don't care if it was my fault, the car's fault, or I did something stupid, or, I'm just mad about it. You know what I mean? I'm there to win. Nobody likes to lose. But, I mean,
True.
Everyone's there for different reasons. I mean, everyone's there for fun. We're all there to win. But in the end, I don't know.
Yeah, and I will say that it can be intimidating for the people that have never gone to a big race or done that type of thing before. It can be intimidating for them to go to one of these bigger races because you really think you're that first time. Am I good enough? Can I hang with these guys? I think I
agree 100%.
Yeah, and in some cases you get people that they don't do well and they basically go back to doing their normal thing and they say, yeah, you know what, I obviously couldn't cut it. But most people that once they make that leap, they end up going someplace. They win a couple of rounds, and they may not win the whole event, and they may lose even first round a competitive race. But they look back and they say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I am good enough to compete at these bigger races with these guys. And yeah, that's
exactly right.
That's when you get them hook, line, and sinker, and they're start traveling every place. But
it takes a lot of skill to win races, and believe it or not, when anybody tells you can be good, but everyone needs luck.
Oh yeah,
you're always in a 10-round bracket race. I mean, if you tell me that you were Peter Biondo take double O every time, all 10 times, I'm going to say, let me see your logbook, because I don't know if I believe it. Everyone, no matter how good you are, everyone needs luck, and that's you need to have luck, and everything just got to go your way. You've had those races where you drove good all day and won. And I personally have had those days where you're like, oh, my God, how did I win 3 of those rounds? That was god-awful.
Right.
But in the end, I don't really know what the answer is. I hope this deal works out for IHRA, not just I'm a bracket racer, but you never want to see somebody fold, you know what I mean? You never want to see something go under, something that's been around for, I don't even know how long IHRA has been around. It's been around since I'm 33 years old, and it's been around for as long as I can remember.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's been around a long time.
All of 25 years.
Yeah, from that standpoint, like I said, John, you and I are on the same page. We both want this to be successful. What it's going to entail, well, we're going to find out, my guess, in the coming weeks and months. But, yeah, hopefully they can turn it into a success.
Let's hope so. I mean, we never want to have nowhere, it's just like the same thing, like when you get online, you go on Facebook and you see racetracks, old pictures of, you want to get depressed sometime, go online and look at old pictures of racetracks that have been, like, closed for 4 or 5 years and how run down and grown over they are. And that's kind of how I feel like, it would be, oh, man, remember the glory days of IHRA, and now it's just gone. I never want to see that happen. But I, for one, am going to support it, and I hope a lot of other people do, too. You know what I mean? I hope that the format comes out, and I hope it's really good, and I hope it's, might go to every race to get my face kicked in first round every race. I'm still going to give it a shot. You know what I mean? I'm always down to support, and I feel like we all should give it a shot at least once and not turn, not stick our nose up to it. You know what I mean? I know
right.
A lot of class guys are like, well, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. I ain't doing that. But, we say it's stupid, but we probably would have wished we gave it a shot if they go under and it's not there anymore. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, bracket racing in general is just stupid, so...
Right. Terrible.
This is coming from the class racer, right? Right. Yeah. I personally don't care. I mean, class racing or bracket racing, it's still bracket racing. It's a different style of bracket racing, but there's no reason why you can't go bracket race someplace. And I am certainly skeptical that this can work, but I have to. Overall, I think you got to tell everyone needs to hear the message that, hey, you know what? At this point in time, you still got to keep an open mind. Keep an open mind, and don't essentially just rule this out. That okay, that's it. This is the death knell for IHRA, and I'm never going to an IHRA race ever again.
Right. And I think if the format is good and the races are, look at the spring fling this past weekend. It had 400 entries of guys of bracket races of top bulb, super pro, whatever you want to call it, top. Super Pro, box, whatever you want to call it. There were 400 gentlemen and ladies that rolled into a gate and paid $700 to race.
Right.
Granted, there was 20s and 50s and whatever, but the contingency of people is still there where this could work if you pick your weekends good. You have a good model where maybe they lower their sanction fee. I don't even know what an IHRA sanction fee is. I think I paid. I don't know if you know, Jason. You probably renewed at the Empire Division. I want to say it was like it's $100 for the year, isn't it, or something around those lines?
Yeah, I want to say I actually renewed for 3 years, and I think for 3 years, I think it was $240 or something like that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to do something with that where they lower that, but $80
a year.
There's certainly a good amount of contingent. There's a good contingent of people that this, like I said, they know where their cars are, and I think they know where their best draws are. There's people that will travel for this type of deal, and it just has to be, the good weekends, a good format. People will travel. They had 400 cars at the fling last. They had so many cars at the spring fling last weekend that next year they're going to cap it at 350.
Oh, really?
They're going to basically have I don't know if they're going to have a pre-enter, but they put something online that they're going to have some sort of, they had perfect weather for all 4 days, and
right.
They just got things done. So, there's still a good amount of people that still want to do this. When you have a bracket race and you're talking about telling people no at the gate.
Oh, yeah.
There's still some sort of crowd out there that wants this to happen, and I hope everyone supports it. I hope they pick good weekends. I hope they put up some decent amount of money. I don't know what I hope for. I just want somewhere to go race, and I hope it doesn't go away, I guess.
Well, go win at New Media this weekend, will you?
I'm going to try. I'm going to New Media this weekend, and then I leave for Memphis on Wednesday morning to go run the Summit Super Series down there. So hopefully, with any luck, we'll come home with some big trophies and some decent hardware.
All right, well,
plan anyway.
I'm going to drag you out here in a couple of weeks, and we can put the big trophies and big checks on display.
Yes.
All right, I'll bring my pro one from Empire, and I'll hopefully have some other stuff to go with it.
All right.
Awesome.
I'm holding you to that.
All right, boys. Have a good night. Safe travels.
Thanks, John. You
See you
too.
later.
Yeah.
John Sear weighing in. Good perspective on it. A little bit of a different perspective, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, him and I, we definitely, I won't say we argued about it, but I mean, we agreed to disagree about, overall what took place as far as the announcement went earlier this week. And, at the end of the day, John and I are the same. I mean, again, I'm not looking for IHRA to fail. I'm very skeptical that this plan is going to work, but I really hope it does work because of the fact that I don't want IHRA to go away, and I want, people to have a place to race. And, honestly, I'd like nothing more than for IHRA to come out and say, hey, you know what? This is our plan. What we're going to do is it's going to be still $150 to enter. You still got to pay our $80 a year membership fee, but our races on the weekend are going to be $20,000 to win. We're going to have dual $20,000 to wins each week, and I will say that races like that, if they could do something like that, that will draw a lot of people. Again, I'm skeptical because of the overhead and everything else, but I'm hopeful. Right. Who knows? It's, if nothing else, it's one more place for us to race as long as they're around. Now, I will say that PDRA, they've already kind of stepped up and said that they're going to start taking on some of these races, racers, I should say. I mean, they expanded their field for Top Sportsman and Top Dragster. Now the way that they're doing is kind of unique, I guess. So they're going to expand their field to 48 cars for each, and the top 16 cars qualifiers in each are going to run separately, and then the final 32 cars, 16 or 32 cars are going to run in a separate eliminator, I guess. So, and I think what you might see is that depending upon the class, if PDRA thinks that it's lucrative for them to have the crate motor stock and super stock guys come out, you know what? They'll create a class for those guys to go race someplace. Find
room. If there's a niche market, find room.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think they're gonna take on any of the class racers. I think they probably realize at this point, class racers can go race on HRA still if they want to. There's plenty of other local series around that they can go race if they want to. Overall, I have to say that the class racers, super rod, hot rod, quick rod, aren't really spectator friendly unless you really know what's going on. Sure. Unlike Top Sportsman and Top Dragster, watching a door slammer go down the quarter mile in 6.5 seconds is cool, whether it's bracket racing or not. Right. Now they race 8th mile, but those guys are running low 4 seconds, that's a fast car, and people will pay to go out and watch those. So those guys will have a place to race. The stocks and super stocks are cool. I like the super stockers particularly because you have wheels up and a large variety of different styles of makes and models of cars to go watch. Be interesting to see what happens with those guys. I'm not really sure. Like I said, some of them will go race Can-Am stock, super stock. Others, my guess, will probably just end up being bracket racers. I don't know. I guess I'm glad that I'm not one of those guys in particular, just because of the fact that I still have options open to me.
Right. And for Halloween, you get to dress up as a guy with a trailer.
I could.
Because you still don't have a trailer.
I still do not. No, I don't. I'm getting closer, I think. But I've gotten a couple estimates to fix mine, and it's not pretty. So yeah, I don't think mine's going to be in the future long term. But yeah, hopefully, at least hopefully by spring I'll have my new trailer. We'll see.
So what else we got to cover? We cover all this thing? We've already gone for almost an hour and a half.
Yeah. I was looking and thinking to myself, geez, I hope we weren't supposed to do the soft close, and because we've gone over at this point in time.
Yeah, we were in the middle of the call. We couldn't really do that.
Right. Well, we could have. We could have told John to shut up for 30 seconds, but Yeah, no, I mean, I think overall, I mean, the IHRA thing was really the big announcement for this week. Overall, West New York Super Rod Association, we finished up our series this past weekend. Harry Phelps ended up being a two-time repeat champion. I won't say that it was already set in stone beforehand going into the weekend because everybody got one race to drop. So Harry had 3 runner-up finishes going into this weekend. And I think figured it out that if he won first round, basically that's all he had to do to pretty much shut everybody out. But he ended up going and winning the race. So there's a nice way to go out in style. So
that's a very nice way to end the year.
Yeah. So he ended up being first in points. Second was Lance Pinto, our 2015 champion. Tommy Allen went by, actually, John Pelicane. Tommy Allen ended up third. John was fourth. And Kirk Perry ended up in fifth spot. Interesting. I was in fifth going into the last race. We lost first round. Kirk won. And when he won first round, he had a bye run in second round as well. And the crazy thing is he actually raced Harry in the final. And had he won that round, had won the race, he would have ended up in second overall. But because
he would have jumped from sixth,
sixth to second in one race. But he would have gone just for that one round. He would have gone from fifth to second. Right. I think third, fourth, and fifth were something like 305 points, 304 points, and 302 points. I mean. That one round, I asked him before the round if he wanted to know what the stakes were, and he said no, so I didn't tell him. But
just by that question, got to make it a little nervous.
I mean, overall, it ended up being. I know it was funny because I told Lance earlier in the night that I was pretty certain that he had already wrapped up second spot, and then I had to go back to him after I looked at the ladder again and calculated the points. Said, "Hey, Lance, I lied to you. If Kirk wins this whole thing, he's going to go past you." But it was some pretty exciting racing. I will say I was real happy for Harry, as was Lance. Lance, actually, you'd think that a guy being in second would want nothing but bad things on his competitor, but Lance came up to me before the race started, before we went into first round eliminations. He's like, I really hope Harry wins. We didn't have a banquet last year, and Harry did get the trophy and the money and everything else, but we didn't actually have a banquet. And he's like, I really want Harry to win so that we can have a banquet and Harry can go get his due, stand in front of everybody, and the pomp and circumstance and everything else. That was nice. I thought that was really nice of Lance to say. Like I said, most cases guys are out for blood, and we're trying to win. Whatever we can do to win. So. We got to make sure that we get Harry a banquet, and I think what we're going to do is I got to talk to Jerry, but we'll try and potentially combine the West New York Super Rod Association banquet with Empire's banquet. Is this the first season? I don't know if this is the first season we've raced only at Empire, but we did really only race at Empire at this year. So at this point in time, we really are kind of an Empire class. Sure. So I think it would make sense to have our banquet in conjunction with the Empire banquet too. Sure. So
do you have a date on that yet?
I don't. I got to talk to Jerry. I don't think he has a date set for it. Typically, they don't do their banquet until after the first of the year. Yeah. So, so we'll have to see.
It was late in the going with final round, just trying to figure out if we were going to go to that banquet or not.
That's right. Yep. And so we'll see. Well, hopefully we'll be able to do that. I will say that John, I didn't get a chance to ask him, but he was actually out there racing his dad's super stocker this past weekend in basically Super Pro, and the whole thought process. Well, was it Super Pro or Pro? It was probably Pro. It had to be Pro. Well, I shouldn't say it had to be Pro. I'm going to guess it was Pro. It's hard to say
You're arguing with yourself.
It's so hard to say with the guys at Empire because of the fact that guys double enter. So, I mean, a guy like Brad Perkins, I mean, I don't even know if he has a trans brake in his car, but he doesn't really care if he's foot braking it. He's racing Pro and Super Pro. So he could end up being Super Pro champion even though he's a no electronics car. And so being a stocker, super stocker, obviously it doesn't have any electronics in it. But, what class John was racing in, I mean, I'm going to guess it was Pro, but I don't know for sure. But anyways, his dad put him in the car, and he's like, hey, we'll put you in this car rather than have you race in the truck so you can go down to Memphis and try and win the bracket championship championship, if you will. And I know that when we were finishing up, he was in the semifinals, I think. So, I mean, here's a car that I don't even think he had driven before yesterday, and he was in the semifinals. And I told his dad, I'm like, man, that kid he's good. I mean, I've seen him do well in that piece of crap Camaro that he had, and now the truck. I mean, he's been doing really well in the truck, and now he hops in his dad's car, and he's doing great in that. I mean, Junior is definitely a very, very good bracket racer. It doesn't matter what he's driving; he's good at it. So we'll see how he does. I don't know if he's. It sounded like he was taking the truck to New Media, and then. His dad's car to Memphis, but I don't know. Maybe he's going to race both at New Media, but we'll see.
Bring it all.
Yeah, we'll get
Call it all out.
We'll get to. If nothing else, we'll get to talk to him in a couple of weeks and see how he did and what he was racing.
Quick side note: you talked about those giant checks. In the event you don't have one, we can go back to the house. I can draw up some graphics and we can put one in the garage, as many of them as you want.
I would like that. I've actually I've debated whether or not we should have one, with like a dry erase marker or something on it that I could present the Western New York Super Rod Association winners at every event.
We could do that. That's easy enough.
Well, why aren't we doing that? We should be doing that.
Because we got to finish the show first.
All right. Well, as soon as the show's over, we'll go make ourselves some big checks.
Yeah, we'll get rich real quick.
Right.
What do you think? We covered it all?
I think that's a pretty good start. My guess is IHRA will keep us entertained here for probably a few more episodes at least.
Keep us, cliffhanger episode, waiting for part 2 of the rest of the news to come out. And the spinoff of this is going to be what Empire does.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
We'll be watching that close, and I'm sure Patrick Budd and Jerry will keep us informed of what Empire is going to do. Their banquet's coming up, so if we can convince them to let us know what's happening, we could break the news in conjunction with Final Round. That'd be kind of fun to play those cards out the way that they may. But we'll be watching that one close. So everybody, I think episode number 24 in the books. It's going to do it for us tonight. Hour and 35-minute episode. It was a good one. A lot of conversation. We appreciate John Cera for number one for listening, and then
agreed.
For taking the time.
At least we have one listener.
Yeah, for taking the time to call in and weigh in with some of his take on it. And it was a different perspective, which we always embrace on that stuff. So for Jason Oldfield and all the folks that tuned in tonight, we appreciate it. And we'll see you right back here again in 2 weeks to talk more about all things that are drag racing in and around New York. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
This has been the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. We'll see you right back here again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.